بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. We express our praise and gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. We seek blessings on the Prophet, peace be upon him. So we've arrived just in time as Ramadan is finishing up to the ayahs on fasting. So once again, just to recap very, very briefly, the part of Al-Baqarah that we're in right now is addressing a number of matters related to the law. And the point being that for the first half of the surah, there were very, very few instructions. Now we have instruction after instruction after instruction. In addition, ayah 183, 184, 185 go together for another reason, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Anybody want to be our official translator? Anyone?
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, go for it. Please read for us 183, 184, 185.
O ye who believe, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, that ye may learn self-restraint. Fasting for a fixed number of days, but if any of you is ill or on a journey, the prescribed number should be made up from days later. For those who can do it with hardship is a ransom, the feeding one that is indigent. But he that will give more of his own free will, it is better for him, and it is better for you that you fast if you only knew. Ramadan is the month in which was sent the Quran, a guide to mankind, also clear signs for guidance and judgment between right and wrong. So every one of you who is present at his home during the month should spend it in fasting. But if anyone is ill or on a journey, the prescribed period should be made up by days later. Allah intends every facility for you. He does not want to put difficulties. He wants you to complete the prescribed period and to glorify Him, and that He has guided you, and perchance ye shall be grateful.
Okay, very good. So, some backstory. The ayahs that we just read actually came in at least two separate periods.
What ayah did you read till?
185. So 183, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may get taqwa. And then ayah 184, fast a certain number of days, ayyama ma'dudat. So the original practice at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, before the command for Ramadan came, was that they fasted the white days. What are the white days?
14.
Yeah, 14, 15, 16, 13, 14, 15, those particular days. Why are they called the white days?
Full moon.
Yeah, full moon. And really try to imagine that time where you don't have any electricity. When the moon is just a crescent or not there, then the environment is completely pitch black, absolutely dark. Yet when you have a full moon, it's as though things become very, very bright. Right? Something that we don't have as much appreciation for because of all the light pollution that we have. So their original practice was that they would fast those 3 days every single month. Okay? And then the Prophet, peace be upon him, received ayah 185, Shahru Ramadan. So the month of Ramadan is the one in which the Quran was sent down as guidance and clear proofs and the law. And so whoever sees that month, then fast. Okay. And so then that shifted from fasting from the three days to fasting of Ramadan.
Is that just old Arab tradition, or is that?
Is what old Arab
The
tradition?
3 days, was that something?
No, that was something specifically with the
For
Prophet.
Muslims.
It may have been some sort of practice before, I'm not aware of it. Yeah. I mean, there are definitely other practices of fasting already present at the time, but I don't know the white days being those days.
And was it the same sort of rules for the 3 days?
Meaning the way we fast,
So
in my understanding was, yeah.
I mean, it's still like sunnah, right, to
Where's
fast
the,
those days?
sorry?
It's still sunnah to fast the white days right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to clarify sunnah in the sense of being a practice of the Prophet, peace be upon him. See what I'm saying? Like in terms of legal obligation, it'd be nafil. Right? You guys understand the difference that I'm making here? That sunnah is one of those words that means a whole bunch of things, and so if I'm speaking of anything that the Prophet did, that's a sunnah, right? But if I'm speaking in terms of obligation, then it's a nafil. Right.
But,
Did you say
and there's
like
a
sunnah
separate
also?
category of sunnah obligation, right? Or like sunnah.
So like when you're praying, Zohar,
Yeah.
right? You got the 4 that are fard,
Yeah.
the 4 before, the 2 after that are sunnah.
Yeah.
In a particular type of sunnah, right?
So that's like a legal term.
That's a legal term,
that-
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, essentially, sunnah throughout our history has had 4 usages. One is anything that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have said or done or witnessed, or the legal category as a level of obligation, or you don't hear this as much. Anything that actually, I'm sorry, the third one is anything that the Prophet and the Sahaba did, right? And the fourth would be essentially anything that the Ummah does. You don't hear the fourth one very much in our era, in our society, right? But so when we're saying that it's still a sunnah, if we're talking about anything that the Prophet did, peace be upon him, praying Isha would be a sunnah. See what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
From the perspective of anything that the Prophet did. From legal obligation, then it's a different hierarchy. Because the farther are things that the
It
Prophet.
wouldn't be like Lara Moked or anything like that, it'd just be Nafil.
The fasting the white days, straight knuckle.
Okay.
They're essentially, aside from the fasting of Ramadan and those particular days, what other days are recommended fasts?
Mondays and Thursdays.
So Mondays and Thursdays, white days, what else?
9th and 10th of Muharram.
Yeah, so Ashura, the day before and the day of, or the day of and the day after. Anything else?
Like the Hajj time, right? I'm supposed to.
The first 10 days of Zulhijjah are also very, very sacred holy days.
And
Right.
then after Ramadan, right? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the 6 days after Ramadan.
CPSA, man.
Yeah, bro.
And then there's the fast of Dawood alayhi salam, which is what?
Every other day.
Every other day, yeah.
And I invite anyone to try it. I kind of think that for our era, with all the chaos, it's almost like something we should all consider. But that's a separate one. Anyway,
What chaos? I mean, like, in general, what,
Sorry?
what do you mean, what?
the amount of chaos that we get cluttered with in our minds.
Oh,
Is there anyone in our tradition who, outside of Ramadan fasted like every day?
Fasting every day is actually frowned upon.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then you're not fasting anymore, right? It's just like eat breakfast before the sun comes up, eat dinner, the sun goes down. See what I'm saying? It loses its effect. Any other thoughts, questions so far with the idea of fasting?
Just one question. So the makeup fast is 60 consecutive days.
Okay,
right?
so in terms of breaking a fard fast intentionally,
Oh, only in March.
meaning without good reason, like if you get sick, that's not what we're talking about. It's like, I'm gonna have this, Diet Coke. Then you got to make up 60 fasts. Yeah, but otherwise, if you're breaking a fast because you're sick, then you just make it up later on. So the first instruction is simply that fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you. What are the fasts in Judaism? The big one's Yom Kippur. There's a whole bunch of fasts in Judaism, but the big one's Yom Kippur. The interesting thing about Yom Kippur is that Yom Kippur in the Jewish calendar is Ashura in our calendar, right? Because Rosh Hashanah, Ra'as Hashanah, is the first day of the year. And the 10th day, which they call Asher, is Ashura. Okay? But the meaning, the significance of it is different. What's the significance of Ashura for us?
It's when
Crossing of the crossing of the Red Sea.
Or the sea, whichever sea it
when
was. but
Hussein was martyred, or no? Is that
No, that's the 10th of Muharram. Yeah, that's the same thing.
That's
Yeah,
the-
no,
yeah.
but in terms of the actual significance of the fasting,
the fasting?
so the Prophet, peace be upon him, discovers that the Jews of Medina are fasting. And so he asks them why, and they say that we're celebrating the day that Allah Ta'ala saved Prophet Musa alayhi salam and his people. And then the Prophet Muhammad says what?
We are closer to
We-
him.
Yeah, I have more rights over Muhammad than Musa than they do.
Yeah.
And so then our instructions to fast 2 days. Yom Kippur, however, is today in Judaism, it's their Laylatul Qadr. So Laylatul Qadr is the night that we're taught that the whole decree is laid out for the next year. That's in terms of the significance of Yom Kippur, that's that day. Yeah. And thus, Jews fast, and they're essentially doing what our equivalent is praying for forgiveness. And so Yom Kippur in Arabic would be Yom el-Kafara. So kafara is this idea of expiating, covering for your sins. Yeah. And so that's what Yom Kippur is for them.
I have a question. On Laylatul Qadr, is it like everybody, like, it's like revealed to the angels what's going to happen for the next year? Is that,
As opposed to,
I don't
I
know.
don't know which part of your question you're emphasizing.
Is that true?
Meaning it's one of our beliefs is that that's when Allah Ta'ala reveals what's going to happen for
Like
next
who's
year.
gonna die and stuff like that.
Especially if you're going to die, yeah. And what risk you're going to get and such.
Isn't that 15th of Shaban?
So this is an interesting debate. So the Nisfu Shaban, so the 15th or the middle of Shaban, there's a question of what is the significance of that. And there's an ayah in the Quran, I forgot where it is, speaking of Laylatul Mubarakah, right, so the blessed night. Some commentators say that that night, Laylatul Mubarakah, is also Laylatul Qadr. Some say, no, that night is the 15th of Shaban. And some commentators say essentially that night Allah Ta'ala is closer to us. That particular night is when He's closer to us than throughout the entire year, right? But in terms of the decree, the majority opinion, my understanding, is Laylatul Qadr.
What day is that? We don't know that what day that is.
Laylatul Qadr?
Mubarakah.
I mean, there's difference of opinion of what Laylatul Mubarakah is referring to.
Oh, so maybe referring to Laylatul Qadr will be.
So it could be referring to Laylatul Qadr, or it could be referring to the 15th of Shaban.
Or the 15th of Shaban.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a really good lecture, there was a really good lecture yesterday from Quran Weekly. Sheikh Nasser Abdul Nasser Janda did an awesome lecture yesterday on Laylatul Qadr.
Still
I saw that thing.
It's recorded. The recording is up now, so you can get the recording.
Yeah, he's totally one of my favorite scholars, so I endorse it by anything he says.
It was on YouTube, but I got an email with the recording.
No, I think I know what you're talking about. It's like a live. It was like a live.
It was live
stream.
yesterday.
But I think they have
But
it
it's
up.
recorded.
The
I
recording
was
is up now.
playing
Is it downloadable?
Yeah, you can just
Put it on
search
YouTube.
it and get it.
It's probably on the site. Okay. Next point of that first I-183, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may get taqwa. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. A point that we discussed way at the beginning of the surah is that this is guidance for those who have taqwa. And the question back then was, well, what if you don't have taqwa? Okay. And so we say that the surah itself is the manual on how to get taqwa. So for example, really briefly, go to the same surah, go to ayah 21. I'll let you know however far that was. So in ayah 21, anybody remember what else is the significance of ayah 21?
First commandment.
First command was getting ready for
Bam.
that big fail.
Gold star.
Yeah, mashallah, mashallah. Your first cold star of your life. Anyway, so
It's gilded star.
So it's gonna take forever to get through. So one step for developing taqwa is to surrender yourself to Allah Ta'ala. A second step for developing taqwa is ayah 63, where Allah Ta'ala is actually speaking to Bani Israel. Remember when we made a pact with you, causing the mountain to tower above you, and saying, hold tight to what we have given you with strength, and remember what is in there. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So what has Allah Ta'ala given us? He's given us the Quran and the Prophet, peace be upon him. So a second step towards getting taqwa is to hold tight to the Quran, hold tight to the Prophet, peace be upon him. Again, I have to distinguish between holding tight to the Prophet versus holding tight to the Hadith. That's two very fundamentally different psychologies. Holding tight to the Hadith is more holding tight to Bukhari, Muslim, and all those things, right? Individual narrations. Holding tight to the person of the Prophet is a very different psychology. How?
Keeping to the spirit versus just the letter of
So that's a big part of it.
technicalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also following just like what he did, that's not necessarily like an authentic thing.
Yeah, this is a really important point, that a lot of the authentic material that we hand down, you are not going to find in the Hadith. Okay? An easy example is how do you recite every letter? You're not going to find this in chapters of Hadith. How do you recite the la and the ba and the ra and all those things, right? That's literally handed down person to person to person. And other people have collected into books, but it's you can't really write down the rules of tajweed except just to say idgham, ikhfa, all those things. See what I'm saying? So there's a major portion of our tradition that's physically handed down from generation to generation, person to person. And by speaking of connecting to the person, we're also making this big point that central to our tradition is the person-to-person connection, right? We made the point before that just about every sin you can think of is breaking a relationship, either breaking a relationship with Allah Ta'ala or breaking a relationship with people. And ours is not so much person to book to person, which is a big part of our tradition, as much as it's person to person to person to person. Okay. Major part of our tradition. So ayah 63, a second step towards getting taqwa, hold tight to to what we have given you, and remember what is in that, so that you may get taqwa. The work towards justice, those eyes will be coming to, are also steps towards taqwa. How would justice be a pathway towards taqwa?
Justice is hard, and isn't it like speak the truth even if it's against yourself? and
Exactly.
Like that? And so it's hard to do, and you can easily like be unjust, and it would be beneficial to yourself.
Mhm.
So it requires a lot of taqwa and self-discipline to be just.
Yeah, it's easy to push for justice if you're going to be the one who's going to benefit, right? It's a complete different story if you're the one who has to accept blame, if you're the one who's going to lose out. Those are the times you have to work towards justice. Or it may be that in a fight between the strong and the weak might actually be the guilty one in a particular situation, right? And so taqwa becomes very important there. And so going back to ayah 183, how is fasting like taqwa? Yes, ma'am.
Because you could be in like hiding and like stuffing your face, and you're like, oh, no one's gonna see me, right? But Allah's seeing me and stuff.
Absolutely. So you have this constant consciousness, right? So fasting is literally embodied taqwa. It's because what are you doing in taqwa? You're remaining on guard, right? So if you have to walk through a forest and step carefully, that's taqwa. And so fasting, all of us know, you're constantly staying on guard. Did you just send an email?
Yeah, I just
got an email from you.
Me?
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
Sabina.
from Samina.
Yeah, that Laylatul Qadr thing.
Oh, cool. It's like, wow.
Because
You can send-
I
It's
know
better
that
than
you
Google
do it.
Glasses. She can send it with her mind.
Oh, that's neat.
I just do it when I get home.
I was watching my YouTube videos and
You
then
got that Sufi thing going.
Yeah, right, I see.
There it is. Sufis.
Cynthia's charge.
Yeah, like people always
I was
complain.
listening.
People complain that Sufis don't follow any of the rules. They don't follow the rules of physics. They follow the rules of Islam. So the point is, the third point to think about is that fasting
Pizzazz was
is.
brought.
Sorry.
You brought the pizzazz
I brought the
today.
pizzazz. That fasting is embodied taqwa. Now, let's see, what do we get from there? This is a conversation that Omer and I had yesterday. One thing for us to think about in terms of fasting over the course of the month is, this is not to answer for any of us publicly, but to ask yourself, do you find yourself feeling like you have had this exhilarating Ramadan, or do you find yourself, which is what more people say, like you feel like you're missing something? Okay. A lot of people come to me telling me that they feel like, they're not getting something out of Ramadan. They don't feel the spirituality of Ramadan. What do you think about that? And essentially what I'm asking is, what is spirituality in our deen?
I feel like it's what you put into it.
Okay, what does that mean?
Like, kind of like how my Ramadan's been.
What?
I mean, it's like, no, so for example, the first week of Ramadan we were moving, right? And
Yeah.
I felt like that first week, all I was doing was starving myself.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't Ramadan, I was just hungry and cranky all week.
Okay.
Because I really wasn't putting in the time, I wasn't putting in the Quran, I wasn't doing, it wasn't there for me. And so when I finally started to, put in the time, give myself the Ramadan time, then I started feeling it a little bit more.
Okay. And what were you feeling?
I mean, that it was like Ramadan, like I felt like,
Like the Christmas spirit? Yeah, that's Ramadan.
I guess.
Elwarn's BLE was playing in your head.
But it just wasn't like regular every day I'm hungry, I just haven't gotten a chance to eat. It's like I'm fasting for a reason.
Okay.
And, I'm trying to do the dhikr and trying to do the prayers. Not that I'm doing that every day, but, at least, no, but at least I'm doing more than I normally do.
Okay.
I think a key component
Where's his
would
voice?
be
Oh, yes. Okay.
I think that drive to just want to change yourself. I think that's a really big factor about it.
Okay.
Just like, okay, I really do want to become better, and then just working towards that.
Okay. Okay. What else? Yes.
I think it's an awareness that whatever you do is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in Ramadan, everything can become, I guess it always is a blessing. So if you have that intention, then you're constantly aware of
Yeah.
Ramadan.
Somebody make note. How long have we had class today before someone mentioned intention as an answer for a question? And if you like that.
Do you like that?
20 minutes.
Okay. Sure.
I feel like if you're asking about like what's spirituality, I feel
Yeah.
like it's just like connectedness. Like no matter what you do, if you're doing dhikr or salah, whatever. Oh, I don't know. I was saying like it's really like just feeling connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like even feeling connected to like the earth and creation. I feel like it's just spirituality, you know. If you like open your window and you feel like this amazing cool breeze, you're like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this thing that no one can create. I feel like that's spirituality.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, like, you could be praying, but you don't have khushu'.
Okay.
So, like, you're not actually feeling it, right?
Okay.
Or, like, you're reading Quran, and it's like, oh, my mom forced me to do this, so, like, I'm not really into it. Like, so, I mean, you have to put something into it, but you have to do it with, like, meaning.
Okay. So how do I do that? What'd you answer that question?
Intention and balance.
You have to say balance.
Balance, intention.
Yes.
You kind of have to open up your heart a little bit.
Okay, what does that mean?
So like when we talked about closeness to Allah, being spirituality,
Mhm.
I don't know how to describe it, but you have to kind of open up your heart to kind of really feel it inside and connect.
Okay.
So it has to be something that occurs like within versus like looking for, you know, the Ramadan spirit or
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's part of it. Like, you know, I agree with you. I think it's like that's part of, you know, what you put into it. Because if you open you're intentionally open your heart,
Yeah.
right? So you want to open your heart and
So I have to
put
laugh.
in.
Anybody remember Total Recall, the original Total Recall? Those of you who are my age.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Remember Quato? Okay, anyway, keep going, please do.
No, but I think that's part of it. And then that's kind of where I was trying to get to as well. Was
Okay.
like, it's what you put into it, and part of that is opening your heart. Yeah.
Okay.
I was
Yes.
just gonna add like you have to humble yourself.
Okay. So the khushu point, very nice.
Yeah.
Yes,
I guess it's building on the khushu point that spirituality is a sense of that inner peace, that you know you don't let anything sort of rattle you. It's like mind over matter. I talked to Solman about that. You know, don't think about the fact you're not eating. Think about why you're not eating, and you know how it's making you a stronger person.
Okay.
And then building off that.
Or
Or
sweet.
sorry.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, I was just, I like the communal aspect, you know, just being able to have that opportunity to see the community, and then, you know, there's sometimes when that one dua, right, and it just, you feel it, you really feel it. I think also night worship, especially the last 10 nights, if you have opportunities to get together with people, or if you can do it at home. I think it's a little more challenging at home, but just if you can and you can find that quiet time just to really, because, you know, shaitan loves to, I mean, this is a really blessed time. This is a really, really amazing time that you have to create time to really kind of feel that.
Oh, I was just gonna say, off of what Noshi was saying, like, you know, in some Ramadans, in answer to your question, where like you feel like something's missing, and then versus you're having like this really great, like I'm getting Tarawih every night, like I've got, you know, I've been doing the Hajj consistently. That like I feel like is the ideal like exhilarating Ramadan. But even just doing you're doing your iftar, you go to Tarawih when you can. Like I think this month you really, if you make yourself cognizant, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close to me and this is a blessed month, like that spirituality component, I think that's what it is. It's just something where you're realizing that this is a special month and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like, you're really trying to sacrifice so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased. It's not, I mean, like it would be great to have all of the, you know, like to have all of your tahajjuds and all of your tarawihs and everything, but I think just even doing like our fasting and praying our prayers, just having that extra step of like being cognizant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like there's something different in this month that like if you just kind of let yourself, you know, kind of be open to it, it's there. You know?
Okay.
Spirituality is basically whatever Allah puts in your heart when you follow through on what He tells you to do. I think.
What does that mean?
Basically, so you if you're praying, you know, you pray your prayers. You're doing basic Farz prayers. There's something put in your heart. You fast. You know, you might not notice something at the beginning of the month. By the end of the month, there's something sitting in, even though you don't think that you've really done anything that much different. When we went to Hajj, I remember thinking at the beginning, I'm not ready for this, I'm not ready for this, I'm not ready for this. I probably went through Hajj thinking I'm still not doing what I need to do. But inshallah, something came different. There's something in your heart that comes out of it in the end. The Quran tells us, it talks about, this is not necessarily, it was a command, I think, of the people of the time, but not necessarily, but still a recommendation that applies to it. The recommendation to wake up and pray and make the Hajj at, half the night or a quarter of it, whatever you can do, whatever you can do easily. It's actually, a lot of people kind of go out in search of spirituality, I feel like, and they kind of get into this trap of, I'll do the prayers when it hits me, when the spirituality hits me. And I think what is our tradition is that, as go fast. Fasting is prescribed upon you so that you'll attain taqwa. Do these things. Write a will. It'll give you taqwa. Do everything that you have to do. That will put the spirituality in your heart. I think it's sort of a reversed, perspective on the idea of taqwa that most people have, perhaps.
And I think also continuing those actions, even if you don't feel that spirituality or feel that those warm fuzzies, you still have to continue doing what you're doing, because you have to have faith that inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you that yaqeen and that taqwa and the that real connection with him, even if you prayed the Hajj one night and nothing really happened, you were thinking about other stuff the whole time. I mean, inshallah, just try to continue, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to have a yaqeen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make a change in our hearts.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that I think the argument goes back to the focus on submission and obedience versus fulfilling of your nafs. So either it's your fulfilling of your nafs and saying, I've achieved spirituality, and when we focus on that, we lose sight of, it's not actually about feeling the spirituality, it's about the obedience and the submission, and the consequence of that is spirituality.
Okay.
So I was saying that maybe we need to, it starts from getting past just the basics of just having no food and no water, and then you get past that, and then you start developing, you have to start trying to know yourself in this month, because this month is more of a training ground for you, because it's kind of like your iman is on, everything is on easy mode right now, because shaitan is locked up right now, and now you can really get to know your own nafs, you get to know your own self, that now you know that, in this month, what can I accomplish, what can I not accomplish, and you can see what, you're training yourself for the rest of the year, you're training yourself to see where your potential is.
I always find it surprising. At the beginning of the month, it seems just so daunting. Ramadan, the summer, 17-hour fast, and you go through it, and then kind of push yourself every day to do maybe the Tarawih, the Tahajjud, and don't realize that you are capable of doing that, on a day-to-day basis. And now in Ramadan, there's some extra energy that you get, that you're able to do that and keep doing it.
A point that I want to draw our attention to, which is touched in many of the things that always said, is that usually or very frequently when we talk about reaching, achieving, feeling, spirituality, we speak about getting high, basically, right? Not unlike someone actually taking a drug to have some type of exhilaration or intoxication, inebriation, right? But if you look at your experience of fasting over the past month, what you've experienced is literally the opposite of that. For much of this is that a lot of the fluff and clutter has been, pulled away. And so what is essentially spirituality in our paradigm? It's to see reality more clearly. Okay? See what I'm saying? That to see the haqiqah, the reality, more clearly for what it is. That as you and I are going through the normal year, we have all kinds of distractions that affect our thinking in a particular moment, how we look at things in a particular moment. Even our physical diet will affect how we're seeing, perceiving things at a particular moment. And what is the experience of fasting in particular, and our so-called spirituality, it's to see reality for what it is. Okay? So it's almost like the inverse experience, right? As opposed to getting high, it's like you're actually getting low, right? That doesn't discount everything else that we're saying. It is an exhilarating experience when we're all breaking fast together, right? It is an exhilarating experience when you're praying together. And that is also part of it too, right? But there's some days you're not going to feel it. But the key point that I want to draw our attention to is that when we are speaking of this big mystery, new wave word, fasting, spirituality, for us, it's to see reality clearly. Right?
But doesn't that give you a high?
It can as a consequence, but I'm saying the high itself is not the goal.
It's not the goal.
Right. You'll see a lot of people who get involved in certain type of Islamic practices who will go through an exhilaration, right? And sometimes you'll go through a salah and it'll be just an exhilarating experience, right? But I'm saying that would be a side product. The actual spirituality is the clarity.
Do you remember during Hajj, there were times when you actually felt low because it felt like you were having a mirror held against you?
Mm-hmm.
Like because you're looking very starkly at yourself, like you don't like what you see.
Yeah, right.
Thanks.
What was it?
I think overall, what I'm gathering is similar to what we experienced in Hajj, is what you're trying to distance yourself from all the attachments and everything that your soul gravitates to. You're basically putting a stop to that and allowing the soul to gravitate to the deen because you've eliminated those things that are pulling you away from it.
I would essentially agree, but I'd make one slight clarification, or more a point of emphasis, that a fundamental difference between our aspirations and a Buddhist aspirations. The Buddhist aspirations has become completely disconnected from everything, as though the cause of all your unhappiness, all your suffering in the world is your attachment, right? Our goal is to appreciate everything for what it really is. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, for example, we do know that the Prophet, peace be upon him, had a favorite food, right? He had favorite people. He had favorite things he likes to do. Like, what are some things that the Prophet liked to do?
Pray.
So he liked to pray. What else? Even like to look at prayer too. What else? Aside from like religious type things.
Ither,
Hey, I said that.
There it is.
White clothes.
decorated.
So he used to he liked good
You heard women, and
smells.
you're like, what?
Oh yeah. Smells.
His favorite
Olives.
food was like the shoulder
Shoulders.
folds or something.
Lamb
What
shoulders.
did you say?
I thought he liked olive oil.
He probably did. I mean, just
Lamb
doesn't know much
shoulders.
Arabs like olive
Papa
oil.
Ganoush.
Yeah. But so the point I'm making is that often we have this notion, we have this notion, and so it's not disagreeing with what you're saying, just points of emphasis that as you're getting closer to Allah Ta'ala, you start just completely disconnecting yourself from the world. That's not what we're talking about at all, right? You're appreciating everything in the world for what it really is.
And would you say that that could be a definition of taqwa? Like going back to the fasting is like, it establishes taqwa. So like would taqwa, like a definition for it be like realizing what reality really is?
I would say that not so much as a definition, but a consequence, right? To appreciate things for what they really are. So this is something I'd like us to seriously think about, especially in the final week or so of Ramadan, that we're not abandoning the world. You're just appreciating everything for what it really is. Especially in our era, it's very easy for that sense to get cluttered because we're always getting bombarded. You always hear from this from me. We're always getting bombarded with images and ideas and everything, and so your sense of priorities can get completely cluttered.
When you say for what it really is, you're talking about like keeping that perspective, right? That's
Yeah.
what you mean by that.
Keeping your priorities straight, keeping your perspective straight, right? Even like, for example, okay, with what's happening in the Middle East, it's very easy to get caught up in the tribalism that goes hand in hand with war, right? We're right, they're wrong. But not saying that the struggle of the Palestinian citizen or the Palestinian resident and the Israeli citizen is the same. Nevertheless, there's a fundamental difference between the policymakers, right, and the common citizen. See what I'm saying? And a lot of times we don't make that distinction. Right? That would be a small example. But think of anything that a person takes as valuable, and what is it that makes it so precious to me?
So it's important to be a part of society as well.
Yes. It's important to be part of society. It's important to value everyone in society. Back to the point that Ifat was making, that ultimately the starting point is obedience, and you're either going to be obeying Allah Ta'ala or you're going to be obeying your nafs, right? Hang loose. You're going to either be obeying Allah Ta'ala or you're going to be obeying what your appetite is seeking. Okay, sorry. And so, oh, sorry, I'm fasting. So, but the point I'm making there is that, and we've had a lot of these conversations over the course of the years, that a lot of our community work might be fair to say is more driven by the nafs as opposed to obedience to Allah Ta'ala, right? Every crowd I go to, when I have to give a lecture, not every crowd, but very frequently, I'll ask them, can you tell me what the first command is, right? Went to another session a couple weeks ago of a number of leaders of the Chicago Muslim community, and I asked them the same question. Can you tell me what is the first command in the Quran? And a room full of people who are all teachers and activists, and nobody could do that, right? And the point that I'm illustrating is that here we had a number of people who are very involved in purchasing buildings, right? Very involved in whatever little amount of infrastructure they focus on, right? But can I tell you what God is telling you to do, right? And
But aren't they like? But they're aware though. Like I mean, like they know that you're supposed to be doing like help your Muslim brother and everything. So if they don't know what the first command is, like, is that such a big deal?
In practice, I'd say it's not a big deal until we get to the third command.
Maybe they know it, but they just don't know it as the first
Yeah.
command.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that practically speaking, agreeing with what Naim was making, the point I was making is that in practice it doesn't make that much difference, right? Until you get to command 3, 4, 5, right? Then things play out very differently.
Can you just remind me what it
Anyway, what's command number 1?
Or should we avoid?
The Abd of your Rabb.
Be the Abd of your Rabb, ayah 21. Command number 2?
Don't set up
Tajal.
Don't knowingly make rivals. Number 3.
Speak good words.
Give good news to those who believe and do right, that dwell gardens beneath which rivers flow.
Of the slave, right?
Yeah, slave worshiper, voluntary living slave worshiper. The commands 3, 4, and 5 in Al-Baqarah relate to our relationship with other people, our relationship with other believers, our relationship with people in general, and then our relationship with people who are hostile. And see the point that I'm making? That's where it really starts playing out.
Because like then you might not value the community as much as you're supposed to be.
And we do invest as a community, mashallah, quite a bit on buildings, but not very much on people.
How do you suppose these people are not doing the command 3, like giving glad tidings?
I'm not pointing fingers at them in
No, I'm just
particular,
saying,
but
like,
in the
I'm just saying
community.
just philosophically.
I think it's very common in our community to look for the flaws in what someone's doing wrong, right? Whereas that first command is compelling us to look for the good in what people are doing. Yeah, that's a very different psychology. Okay, so ayah 184, fast a certain number of days, and then we have these other exceptions if you're sick or if you're traveling. Then do what you can, but make it later. And then ayah 185, month of Ramadan. So if you witness it, then fast. This is a small side point. This is not the primary proof, but this is a proof. When it says, whoever sees it, man shahida. This is one of the arguments that's given for moon sighting as opposed to the birth of the moon. Right? The birth of the moon means the crescent is there whether or not you can see it. The sighting means that even if it's a cloudy day and the moon is there, you didn't see it. Right? Small side point, but that's a whole other conversation. We're going to have that next week.
Small side point is.
Yeah.
You're talking about 185.
185. Man shahida. That's right. Okay. Another point in ayah 185 also touches on what's considered to be part of the philosophy of Sharia. That Allah Ta'ala desires for you ease, not hardship. This is a point that we've made before. That when you imagine your obligations, when you imagine your Islamic obligations, okay, do you imagine it to be something difficult, meaning something that makes your life more difficult? Or do you imagine it as something that makes your life easier? Now, I'm not saying that for us it's easy to make our prayers, it's easy to fast or anything like that. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, is life inside Islam, do you imagine it to be easier than life outside Islam?
I have something to say about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like easier or harder, but I think it simplifies it.
Okay, what does that mean? That means it's easier.
Because I think it kind of takes away a lot of the like the noise, you know, like the different pulling influences that you may, you know, make part of your priority list.
Okay.
And when you try to follow the basics of Islam, it just, there isn't any room for that. Those don't have priority.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
I think it simplifies. I don't know if it's necessarily easier.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
your English is more advanced than mine, but I think simpler, easier synonyms are. That's why I can't give speeches like in two scenarios. One is that if I eat some carbs before I give a speech, then my mind is cloudy. The other is if I'm fasting, because then I have like no filter, and I give this talk and to these elders, and gosh,
Say
I
things
really,
like kami shababs and all
yeah,
that.
exactly. But I was giving this class like ours, but with a bunch of elders. Gosh, they said a lot of things I didn't like hearing. But anyway, keep
But
going.
it might be hard to, you know, pray and dress modestly and do all these things. But I definitely think it's a lot easier because, like, the Quran like says, okay, don't drink even though there may be benefits to it. Don't go near zina. It doesn't say don't do zina. It says don't go near it. So I think it's like simplifying it. Even if we were like Christians or whatever, I think life would be so much more difficult. Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Even if you're trying to be moral.
And I think
it's hard.
as you progress in quote unquote your spirituality, it's what our injunction just seems like a natural thing that you'd want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not something that's seen as a task or something that you have to do. It's something you want to do because that's where you find your happiness and peace.
I think we just focus on a lot of stuff we're not supposed to do that do in the end make our life easier. But I think like one of the best things about Islam that we are, you know, that we have, alhamdulillah, that we're able to experience is that we have the chance to have like a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's based on both practice and like this whatever amorphous spirituality. So I think that kind of really having that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like it really allows you, because I think if you don't have like that understanding of reality, it makes it very difficult to live in this world. Like, you know, it's hard to know like why things happen the way they do. It's a difficult thing, but inshallah, like, you know, the way we have been given to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, we believe, the perfect way to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that, I think, makes your life a lot easier to experience whatever you're going through, to go through, you know, whatever hardships you have, to have that perfect connection, inshallah, or the means of a perfect connection, inshallah. That really does make your life a lot easier.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's just hard here and now. Like,
Okay, explain.
like the place we live in is like very desensitized, and everything that's haram and like Islam is like supposed to be fun in like our society, right? So like, I mean, I don't think it's like hard, but it just seems hard.
Mm-hmm.
So like everybody around, like it's hard to dress modestly, but if everybody around you was dressing modestly, it wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Because so you're saying we're sort of like not the sore thumb. What's the metaphor?
We're the strangers.
Maybe, yeah, sure. Like we're like a stranger in society. The anomalies with others. Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, life has a lot of big questions. So,
that
all
comment.
of a sudden that
Whoa,
becomes a
yeah.
philosopher,
He was like this moment to just absorb how profound that comment was. Okay, please continue.
And I don't want to mention it.
You won't be able to handle what I'm about to say next.
He's gonna blow our minds.
And so religion, like Islam and all the other religions, answer these questions. And so, you know, being like an atheist, you still have all those questions. And you begin to doubt yourself, and then it can lead to stress. So that's how I think, you know, Islam makes life, that's one of the ways Islam can make life easier.
I think this is a very important point. Like, I think we might have discussed briefly that, like, in the past, that someone who has no belief can be someone with good character, right? But someone who has no belief, because they don't have answers to these big questions, will struggle in dealing with, like, tragedy, right? Holistically speaking, you'll see this again and again, that if you had a crowd of people who are non-believers, meaning in anything, and then the people who are believers in whatever tradition of the big ancient traditions, the people who are believers in their ancient traditions tend to have many more tools inside to deal with tragedy. Right? Tragedy still hurts. Right? We have one of our young people in our community who just died, and it's an immensely painful thing. But if you had no belief, you'd have no cushion beyond that. Right? I think it's a very, very important point. Especially what both of you mentioned, this idea that, I'm not saying that it's easy in this society. I mentioned before that one of my friends who comes from a very, very strict conservative Deo Bundy training, he was traveling around the country with one of his teachers from overseas, and his teacher said that, all right, if in America people are praying 5 times a day, you should call those people walis of Allah, because of how hard it is here, right? Because our mind is always on.
Around. I mean,
Sorry?
like when you're in Pakistan and you have like the adhan going on every block, you know, and everyone's doing it because it's easy and it's the right thing to do.
I don't think everyone's doing it, but yeah, keep going.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think people around here are doing it. I don't know. I mean, it's Islam. It's supposed to be Islamic. I don't know.
It's harder to be Muslim.
I told you that joke, right?
Well, now it is, but before
No,
you don't know.
No, I'm
So-
not.
But
Even
here
like
it's
India
like
or whatever.
everyone's sleeping and you're waking up for Fajr and there's no adhan and you're actually setting an alarm. You're going there. I mean, that's a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's definitely this point that not only are you the anomaly in society, at least right now, think of how many obligations we have on our mind at any given moment, right? I got to get this done, I got to get here, I got to do that, so forth and so on. And so, yeah, if you are able to make your 5 prayers, that particular scholar is saying that that's a huge, huge accomplishment. And he's just talking about the prayers, not even talking about everything else. So all of that is setting up the end of I-185 and I-186. What is the end of I-185? That Allah Ta'ala desires ease for you, not hardship. Complete the fast and appreciate Allah for guiding you and be grateful. And this is the point we made before, right? That one of the central goals that I have as a believer is to be grateful for what I have. Okay? Any one of us could be going through serious problems right now in our personal lives, right? Yet you are in this moment, in mashallah, in this house, in the comfort with all of us here, and so even you have moments to be grateful for in the middle of gigantic struggles too. But setting up that is also all setting up I-186. Official translator, Nashi, would you read for us I-186?
I can't read.
I think the pizza guy.
Oh, pizza. Okay, you could just say pizza. She's like,
What's going on?
Sign language was not right.
When my servant asked thee concerning me, I am indeed close to them. I listen to the prayer of every suppliant when he calleth on me. Let them also, with a will, listen to my call and believe in me, that they may walk in the right way.
Okay, very good. This and I we've looked at before, but now I'm drawing our attention to this because this is coming right after these central ayahs about fasting. When my servant, Allah Ta'ala, now notice that Allah Ta'ala is speaking here in the singular about himself. When my servant asks you about me, then I am near. Okay. So a couple points. The Sahaba were asking the Prophet, peace be upon him, because some of the idol worshippers were asking them, where is Allah? Okay. And so the response that the Prophet gave came through this ayah. He is near. Okay. It's one point. There have been other answers that the Prophet gave for where is Allah. But this is the one. Oh, I love that. It's better than cologne, yeah. So, I'm going to get like lasagna perfume.
I don't know why, but just seeing that made my stomach grumble even more. Just seeing you smell that.
Wow. Okay, so that was the historical background. Now, think about what else is being stated in this ayah. When my servant asks you about me, then I am near. What is that saying?
First you have to ask.
But the simple fact that you're asking about Allah Ta'ala by definition means He's near. Right? So at one level, it's just asking the question, where is Allah? He's near. Okay. But the fact that you're asking about Allah means by definition He's near. So take this point a step further. Like the question of, making your prayers and all those things that we were just saying. That if I'm making my prayers then by definition that means Allah likes me. See what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that if I'm not making my prayers, Allah hates me, but I'm saying that if I'm fulfilling an obligation for no reason except I just have to do it, okay, that's still a passing grade. It means that Allah Ta'ala likes me, meaning He's making me make the prayer. See what I'm saying?
So why isn't the flip side true?
Flip side is not true because there's other ayahs that say basically it's not true, right? So like Surah Al-Duha, right? You know, your Lord is not unhappy with you, nor is He forsaking you, right? But the point is that in one direction it is true. One direction. So, just my mind through originally. So seriously think about that point. When you are wondering about your Iman, when you're wondering about your Islam and all those things. There's, I don't know if in this class I've made mention of Gulistan by Sadi.
I think you did.
Yeah. There's this, so there's this poem from 1,000 years ago by Sadi, a big scholar of the past, called Gulistan, the Rose Garden. Yeah, I think I with this. Which, on the surface, it's basically, he's writing advice for kings on how to run a society, what you should do for education, what you should do for your little subjects. But in actuality, it's more like chicken soup for the soul. It's like dealing with all the struggles of life. It's okay, everyone has to go through it. But there's this one really nice story, which might be a complete legend, maybe it's probably a legend, about one of the big sheikhs of the past who is doing sajda in front of the Kaaba. Okay? And in his sajda, this sheikh is saying, you know, oh Allah, you know, I think about you all the time, and I wonder, do you ever think about me? Right?
He heard.
Sorry?
And he heard an answer.
Well, that was the end of it. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. There's no fireworks after that.
Yeah.
That's right. I think you failed, man.
Yeah. But the point is that perhaps many of us in this room have had experiences like that or feelings like that, right? You know, where do I stand in the grand scheme of things? Where do I stand with Allah Ta'ala, right? And the point I'm making is, this was a super huge scholar who is in the holiest of holies and in the holiest of positions, right? And he is asking this question to Allah Ta'ala, which means thus it's natural for me to ask the same thing. Right?
Is he asking if he has approval from Allah?
Yeah.
Because clearly he is being thought of by God. Right?
Well, I think part of it is, you know, is does he have approval, right? You know, and I think that's at some point within each of us that wonder is also present, right? Not just simply the question, am I going to get salvation, but you know, is what I'm doing okay? Is what I'm doing right? You know, when I'm trying to do good.
And I guess to get to that, where you know, to get to that spiritual level, like Mohi was saying, you just have to do it. You just have to do all the things.
So the starting point, the fact that you're doing it automatically by definition is a yes, right? It's a passing grade, right? Which is still huge, and we're invited to go for an A+. But, so the fact is that if you're making your prayers, even if you feel like you're not getting anything out of it, the fact that you're making your prayers is success. The obedience itself is a success. Second part, ujibu da'wat da'i idha da'ani. I answer the call of the caller when he calls. Yeah. Now this is a point we've talked about before for those who haven't been in the class. This is the prayer of the heart versus the prayer of the tongue, right? And just to recap for everyone, the Prophet peace be upon him has taught us that when you make a dua, what's going to happen? Either Allah Ta'ala is going to give you what you're asking for, or He's going to remove a burden, or He's going to give it to you in the hereafter, and you'll wish that He answered everything in the hereafter, right? That's referring to the prayer of your tongue. Okay? You know, oh Allah, please make this happen. Okay? The prayer of your heart, however, using this ayah among others as the argument for that, the prayer of your heart, however, is always answered. Okay? So how do you figure out the prayer of your heart? You look at what you are asking for with your tongue and ask yourself, what are you really seeking, right? So you have a student who is praying, oh Allah, please give me an A. What does the student want? Maybe to get into school, a professional school, or maybe so that the parents are happy, or the parents are not unhappy. Well, why do you want that? You're looking you keep answering yourself, you keep asking yourself, why do I want this, and why do I want this? Yeah.
Isn't ultimately, like, every dua you make for your own personal happiness, like, if you think about it, like, every single if you ask to like, I'm becoming the number one, but if you're asked to get into medical school, okay, you're like, the only reason you're doing it is so that you're personally happy.
Sure.
So like, isn't every dua that we make for that reason?
I would say that most of our du'as, when you're getting close to the core, are you usually asking for something as simple as rahmah, right? And you're interpreting, here's how I'll get the rahmah in this moment. Give me this. Yeah. Give me the promotion, right? Or let me not get promoted. Deeper than that, every prayer essentially is asking, oh Allah, bring me closer to you.
If we go through that exercise and we were making dua for the people of Palestine, what's the exercise that we have?
Let's do it. So if we're praying for the Palestinians, what are we praying for?
Stop Muslims from suffering.
Okay, and that's a big part of it, right? Especially if we're not making the same prayer for other people who are suffering. Right. What else?
But
What
like,
else are we making?
if you go deeper than that, like you don't want them to suffer. Okay, why don't you want them to suffer? Because it hurts you. And then why did like it hurts you? You want your own happiness. So like, do you know what I mean? That's why I always think about like this whole chain, isn't it? Just for your own self.
I'd think deeper than happiness would be the desire for rahmah, right? That if we're praying for the well-being of the Palestinians, I would say part of it is a desire for rahmah again, right? And I'm saying that it does go hand in hand with the sense of happiness.
When you define rahmah, are you saying that it's a blessing that's not earned, or?
No, I'm just saying make life easier, or make me feel like life is easier. What do you think?
I don't know how the two correlate.
I put all those. I mean, if you just think of like the core needs,
Because we're afraid.
and I would even suggest that even the desire for rahmah is a step even deeper than that.
And I think
Wait,
it's
you're
a
saying
desire
that
for, the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think, is also this huge, like, desire that you're trying to.
I'm suggesting that's the core desire that all of us have.
So like this dua for Palestinian people, you don't want your fellow Muslim brothers and sisters to suffer, because like that is, to have an ummah that is whole and not in suffering, that like that's
Part of your
yeah
iman,
that's
sort of.
part of your iman, to like
That
make
makes sense.
things better for everyone. That's part of your iman, and that's part of your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Now, taking this point that I'm saying, your core dua, every time you're making a dua, is, oh Allah, bring me closer to you. Okay? Is then saying what? Now moving back from your core out, we're saying everything, all of your emotions that you feel are actually manifestations of your distance from Allah Ta'ala. Okay? Someone just say yes.
No, okay, so I have a question about this.
Okay.
This is like what I was asking you in the email. So I think that things have value to the extent that you give them value.
Okay.
Right? So you accept what is around you, or you create, value in something by caring about it. So if you are making the dua that for closeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why is that not good enough? Like, because if you think about it, if you think about something that you want, right, what is that really giving you? I don't think it necessarily gives you anything that's tangibly beneficial. It's because you value that thing,
Okay.
right? Because I remember I was asking you that question, is why can't you just make that dua, the basic dua of let me be acceptable to you and let me be closer to you?
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think? So the question was basically, should I pray for specific things? Right? Give me this, give me this, give me this. Should I pray for general things like, oh Allah, please do what's best for me?
But I have one more thing.
Yeah,
about that.
okay.
Because when you think about the specific thing you're praying for, it almost like the dua can't be completely sincere because it's not about that thing.
Okay.
If you're aware of what it's really about.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So far? Okay. What do you guys think?
I think specific, because like I think Mom also needs to ask for specific
Okay.
things, right?